Yesterday was pretty heavy in geometry. Okay, and I know that, and it won't be that way today. Okay, it's going to be more about one subject, and we won't have to go through so much. But it was preparation for you to see how geometry and how important it is in relationship to this organ. So I had my reasons for making it pretty kind of abstract a little bit, but not today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of preview this. I'm going to go back and kind of go real quickly through what we did yesterday, just based on the expansion of a form and the contraction of a form, because this is what's going on, okay, in the heart. So these are research papers that I did before I came, and I had to learn the language. So I start out very slow, and now I can read them, and I like them. I didn't like them at first, but now I do. And what I'm going to do with all these research papers, okay, what I've done with them, is that what I have found in the geometry backs all that up. There isn't a thing in here I disagree with, except a little bit that about a dissection way of taking the heart apart is the only thing that I agree with a lot of it, but there's one major thing I don't agree with. But basically, all of this research is great stuff. They're all on the internet. I have a list of all of the resources that I got. Did everybody get those? Oh, Kelly has them. She'll pass them out. It lists all of the research papers where of any of these things that I happen to talk about that you're interested in. I've put the research paper where you can find it on the internet and what part of the research it's covering. So I have part of a heart failure that's also referred to in these papers. Okay, so that's good that you have that. Remember that I started this 12 years ago with 7 sticks that I stuck into a seed and put clay around. That's how I started. 7 sticks that I found on the American River that I made all the same length, and I poked them into the seed and made sure that they were all the same distance apart, and that's how I started. So what I'm telling you is that if you have a project that you're interested in, it doesn't have to be sophisticated. Okay? All you have to do is to have something that you're interested in that leads you into a protocol, a process of some kind that leads you into areas you haven't been in, and that's what the heart likes. It likes that. It likes enthusiasm. And that's the fire. And that's what this is. This is fire. This represents fire. This represents warmth. Throughout history of studying these things. So in this process here of this going on, I'm going to show this expansion one and this contraction one and show you the difference, because one is based on expansion, one is based on contraction. And so I went very quickly. Okay, I'm going to go slower today. I can do that now. So I'm going to start off with a couple paper here to show you how I'm going to do this. So what I do is I mark where it is, where my reference point is. If you want to come up and look at any of these things, they're here for you to look at. Okay, this is in 2004, a big group of doctors got together in England, and they decided that they wanted to study, they had a special report on left ventricle function and form. Wow, that's perfect. Function and form, that's what I do. So in this here, it says, from micro to macro, our limited understanding of the heart's function continues to represent an obstacle to our ability to design strategies for effective treatment of heart failure. And that's what these doctors concluded here after their special report meeting that they had. And they also said here, progress is most urgently needed to plan research programs that will most effectively bring understanding of functional geometry into therapy of the human heart disease. They even use geometry. Imaging technology, okay? And that's what they use, they can see through this use of magnetic technology, they can see the movement of fourth dimension. Okay, and that's really important. Also, they can see it in stills too, but it's really a vital way to study the heart. But it says imaging technology must be matched with a new understanding of the importance of shape, form, and fiber architecture. They even use architecture to provide insights into disease that can lead to new therapies. So this was, this is just right up my alley. So at the end, I'm also going to go back to this at the end of my lecture. I'm going to go back to the last part of this because of what they recommend. So my work, my work is all centered around a new tool that can be used by cardiologists. It can be used to back up what they're saying. Another way of saying, hey, look, we found this. This is what the healthy heart looks like. What does the geometry look like? What does the geometry look like when you have congested heart failure? What does it take? What form does it take when it's restricted? On and on and on. So the geometry can come along and say, hey, this is what it's supposed to do, and this is what it's doing. Let's see if we do this operation. If we stick, this is called mile struts. If we take 2 mile struts and run it through the heart to squeeze the upper chamber of the left ventricle to reduce its size, does that make sense? Is that a good option? And they're asking this, how do we know if we really have something that works? Okay, so that's what I'm doing. What I'm trying to do is to bring that, okay, to the world. So now I'll go through the history a little bit about their research and what they do. This is a paper on modeling the heart. And what's important about this one is their model of the heart, okay, it's a tetrahedron. Wow. Right here. Their other one is called a prolate, and a prolate is the inside chamber of the left ventricle. They use what they call a prolate. It's also geometry. So for some reason, this is a split image, and that's okay. That's all right. And of course, this one up here is so important, where there are 2 circles that overlap, and I have them here now so that I can actually show you what I mean. There's 2 circles, and all I do is take the centers of those 2 circles and bring them out to the periphery of both circles. Remember that? How that's and what is that line that goes through here?
Root 3.
That's root 3. Root 3. I went on the internet and I said, I'm going to look up the number for root 3. So I did. You can do this. You can just type in root 3 number, and it gave me a page of numbers. And I'm not kidding you. The page is just loaded and loaded and loaded with lines of numbers for root 3. And so at the end, they said, click, there are 235 more pages. So I went to the last page, and still doesn't have a 0. So there's more to go. But somehow, after 200 pages or more, they gave up. But I can make it perfect right in front of you, absolutely perfect. Every time. all I have to do is draw these two circles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw root 3 in here. So maybe I have a pen. I don't know if I've got that pen or not. I was having so many people use that pen that now I don't know where it is. Aha, I think I feel it.
You need a Sharpie?
I need a magic marker. That's all I need. Anybody have one? Oh, there's one.
You have a glue stick?
And then it'll be all right. It'd be neat if I had a red one, but that's okay. All right, so no, that's okay. I'm going to draw a line here. And of course you know that, that's not too accurate because I'm just doing it freehand. But that's root 3. Follow me? Yeah? How easy? So if I take this apart, okay, and I'll reverse this, okay, there should be a line on this side. So let's put a line there. This is the line on the other side. So to make sure that we're accurate with the kind of sketchy, thank you.
The top, like a ballpoint,
Now you don't mind if I go a little slower, but I'll tell you, this is amazing what you're going to see about this pretty soon. So here I do. Now we have to make sure that we're correct here with those two lines. Are we?
Yeah.
We're correct. Okay, so if I put them together like this, there's where they are. Now what's so important about this is that's the balance of these two circles. It's a balancing. The root 3 is a balance in 2 dimensions. So that means from right to left or up and down, or forward and backwards. 2-dimensionally, that line is the balance. Okay. So I'll put this over here. This is also root 3. Another line that has no end. And it's the diagonal across any cube, as long as the cube is accurate. This is root 3 also. Root 3 is known as formative forces. Now to have root 3, you have to have a proportion and ratio. And you always have to have 1. This is 1. So in relationship to 1, this is root 3. Root 3 is 1.732, and then all the numbers. So we always use 1.732. That's the actual measurement, so that makes a square 3 miles square, or 3 inch square. Okay, this is the square root. Okay, so 1.732 times 1.732 equals 3. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4. So where is 3? It's not 1, it's not 2, it's in between. Okay, so this is the second one I have here. The researchers say that the heart sits in the human body at 45 degrees. Right there. And this is, I've seen this in the textbooks. The axes of the heart and the body, vertical basis, axis, forms an angle of approximately 45 degrees. Hey, this is actually what's in the textbooks. And I know where it's coming from. See, if you look at this cube straight on, that's 45 degrees. Isn't it? Across here, like this, that's 45 degrees. So the top is also 45 degrees. So is the side. That's 45 degrees, perfect. But you know that that is a line that's running through it at root 3, which is approximately between 35 and 36 degrees. That's important. This is 36 degrees. From here to here is 36 degrees. This is 72. And this is 60. Then I'll get more and back into those numbers. Okay, so now you know that. Let's look at the internet, or not at the internet, but at my slides here. Now, trouble is you're going to see two, but that's the way it is. So what you'll have here is Pythagoras with his triangle. Then you'll have, I think this has kind of worked this way out a little bit. Then you've got the tetrahedron inscribed in the cube. And you saw me do that yesterday. Here it is. Let's see what's going on here, what I've got. There it is in the cube. Maybe this is not going to be so bad. Okay, and on the far side here is the tetrahedron that the researchers are using. And they're saying that is the outside, okay, basic outside of the left ventricle. Okay, let's see if I'll go on here. Okay, here's what they're doing now. They're saying that this is the shape of the left ventricle, and what they're doing is they're using geometry in a net form to go around the heart to try to measure it. So what is important to understand about what's going on here is that in this area, we measure everything. Measure, 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 measure. Okay, this area here, you can't measure. It's not seen. But we can see it now. So this I've named this geometry because this is the first time we've seen this in the world. I've named it preometry. And this is geometry. Preometry means that this is before measurement. This is geometry, which is earth. It's geography. That's what the geo is. And what does geometry measures? It measures earth things. It measures lots. It measures 3 miles square. It measures all the things that are three-dimensional. So this isn't geometry. This is based on the earth. That's not. This is contraction. This is expansion. All right, so they put this net, okay, around what they think the outside of the heart looks like. And from all the studies I've seen, okay, that's a far cry from what the left ventricle looks like. But it is a way of studying it. The next thing here is you're going to see the prolate. All right, let's see the prolate. There's a prolate. They're saying that's what the shape of the inside of the left ventricle looks like. Okay, and that's the research here that I have here. So you want to read about the prolate, it's here. All right, now let's see what I got here next. It's important to remember these things, what's happening. What they've done is so interesting is that in the study of the prolate, they put it in a cube. Now it's blurry, okay, because that's the only thing I could get. But they're using a cube. And they're putting the prolate in it, okay? The only problem is they lined it up with root 2, not root 3. And root 2 is a diagonal. Okay, and I think they get that because of the 45 degrees that they think the heart sits in. Okay, so here's a bigger picture of that cube, but it's still blurry, but you can at least see that they are using the cube. Now here's what you've got. Here is the inside of the left ventricle chamber based on the steroid, the prolate. And you can see that they're trying to move it, okay, and you can see that some of the sides get a little off and so forth and so on. They're getting at it, okay, but they still don't know. Now this is the problem. All of this that you see that the researchers are doing and all of these things is they're studying phenomena. But they don't know what's behind the phenomena. They don't know the other side. This is phenomena. This isn't. This is the archetype. So it's phenomena, measure, 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 measure. Well, we need to do that. But we also have to understand, okay, what's behind the phenomena, the unseen. Now, there are many people that think that when there's a threshold, and that's that line I drew across, that's behind here, that line I drew all the way across, that is a separation between what we see and what we don't see. So what we see here on Earth and where we are now, okay, we see this, we can measure it, but we can't see the phenomenon, what's behind the phenomena, because it's hidden. So during this time on Earth, we are supposed to understand the phenomena, okay, and where it's coming from. Because on this side, we can know, but we can't see. On this side over here, we're going to be able to see, but we won't be able to know. So the idea is, in this particular time that we're all sitting in here, is that we need to see, because we can't. Over here, we're going to see what we need to know. So this is the first process that leads to this, which is geometry, which is lawful, which has it has an order, and it can't lie. You can't cheat. It's not possible to put subjectiveness into this and make it look like we want it to look like. It doesn't work that way. So, you're going to think, well, now, I don't understand here, a couple things, but let me just go back to the time we did yesterday. This is what we can't see. And you know how you can see it, because it's a tetrahedron that opened up. And of course, when it opens up, you can't see that, can you? You can't see what is that? What is that? But if we put it down on the surface, we can find exactly what it is by extending that surface out as far as it goes. Yeah, that's what this is. So we started here, and we opened it up until it became a tetrahedron and an octahedron. And in the middle is the seven-sided form. So if I take the original size of the tetrahedron and I open it up, you remember that this turns into a tetrahedron twice as big. And this is the twice as big tetrahedron. And of course, it should fit over this perfectly. And it does. So this is the transformation of this one through a lawful expansion. Lawfully expanding into this form. And this gets to this point here, it can't go any further. Now, if we go over onto this side, this is all about expansion. This is all about contraction. Polar opposites. I had to find out how to take this form and contract it. But what I do, the first thing I do, I start cutting the corners off. Which, doesn't work. So what I thought the only way that I could do this was to go back to this tetrahedron, okay, which is where I started. Go back to this tetrahedron and put it into Earth. And what is Earth? The cube. Throughout history, this has always been considered the cube, the Earth. And it's because it's 90 degrees. It's the only place, if you look at Hubble or wherever it photographs, you never find 90 degrees. Never. Only find 90 degrees here. And of course, everything grows at 90 degrees. All your plants, your trees. It's the four directions. It's the four seasons. That's all based on four. Four winds. That's why they've always chose this for Earth. Not because the Earth is square or a cube, but that it is at 90 degrees and it's different. It's different than all the other forms. All the other forms do not have 90 degrees, only the Earth. Okay, so I decided I would put this, and I showed you, I decided I would put this into a cube. Now over here, what I did with the cube, I expanded it. So I thought, well now, how am I going to contract that? If I cut the corners off, I can get something, but I know what I get if I cut the corners off is I get those other forms that you saw yesterday. So that's not going to work. So what I did is I found out that if I take this in a cube, it fits at root 3 in here. That's the diagonal. Remember I told you that diagonal, which is 36 degrees? There it is. That's root 3. So the tetrahedron sits in a cube at root 3. And what happens is I found out that how to make this change, like this one's doing, was to twist it. That's all I did. I picked this and I twisted it in a cube. Now you know that that's not going to twist because it's, you know, it's fitting in there perfect. So that means I had to change this. Instead of cutting it off, I had to twist it like this, and that turned into this one, you saw yesterday. It turned into this one. Then it turned into the 7-sided form, which you know. Then it turned into a little smaller one, and then it got to this very end. And the very end, this one, is this. The same form. And this form is in a tetrahedron. Look, here it is. Same thing. That's amazing that you can take something and expand it and contract it and have this exactly happen exactly half the size. And no one's ever twisted any of the Platonic forms in any of the others. They just stick them in there and they leave them, but they never move them. They never twist them. Now we have this as twisting. And there is the one with the little guy in there. And here's another little example of him. The same thing. So this is expansion. This is contraction, getting the same thing. So if I put these over here, underneath, you'll have the comparison that you can come up and look at to see that this one is here, and at the other end is the tetrahedron. And it's the same size tetrahedrons we used on this one. Think of it. It's the same size tetrahedron that goes in the cube that we started out with. Look. Same one. These are unbelievable. They're the same size. So you can see why I'm going a little slower and I'm showing you some things that I had to go pretty fast before, because you need to understand more and more. Remember, this is the 7-sided form, and this is what's inside. Now, what I did was I put those together. See, and here's an example how I put them together. So the outside one is a 7, and the inside one is this. This, what I'm holding, is the archetype of the outside and the inside of the human heart. This is the chamber inside the left ventricle, and this is the outside of the left chamber. Now I'm not saying, oh my gosh, I know a heart doesn't look like that thing he's holding. I know that for sure. Well, you know, I had to deal with that. So what I found out how to deal with that is to go to minimum surfaces. And minimum surfaces, okay, is what I did was I took the 7-sided form and I put it in soap and I brought it out just like kids doing. I'm just playing around, and I took a straw and I blew a bubble in it, and it turned to look like this. This is the 7-sided form, okay, and minimum surfaces. So this is how a geometric form in nature becomes organic. This is now organic. I mean, that's absolutely organic. It's not a straight line on it. This is basically the archetype of the outside of the left ventricle. All right. So here we go. You can see how I went from geometry and how expansion and contraction work together, how they are related to each other. That means that this expansion thing that I found is so lawful that I just love it. You can't deny it. And it's half the size. And what's happening is you've got expansion and contraction. Look at this. It's unbelievable. I had no idea when I started with 7 sticks and mud that this would happen. Okay. So now let's get into the heart a little bit here. Okay, now that I've shown you the basic shape, okay, they have this myofiber architecture that's in the heart. And apparently, from the research, there are 8 layers in the heart that have striated muscles that look like this. So this is the outside, okay, and you can see that the angle here as it goes down kind of tucks under there. What he did is he dissected this, peeled this off, dissected, peeled this off, dissected, peeled it off, okay, and you'll find that it went horizontal here, and then it reversed directions at the very end, at the end. Now I looked at all the geometrists that work with this, and there are some that have. The one that looked at that a lot of you may know is Lawrence Edwards. Okay, that would probably ring a bell to some people. He tried it too, and the only thing that he could come up with was that this was reversing. That didn't explain anything. It shows the, you know, I mean, I can tell lots of things are reversing. So I had this on my wall for a couple years, and I would walk by it, look at it, and look at it, whatever, because there is no explanation for this. Now there's one that Kelly will show you, but I'll show you the problems with these. So anyway, I'll put this here. So these are the fibers that go in and around the heart. The ones that go into the heart on the chamber run in this direction, and the ones on the outside of the chamber runs like this direction. And they make this kind of shape. This is out of the research. Let's see if I have it handy. Maybe I don't know. I'll find it later. But it shows the actual shape of those. Yeah, here they are. This is what the research is saying that those myofibers look like when they cross. Like this. So what I did was, I have the 7-sided form over here. This is 3-dimensional projective geometry. That's what this is. Most projective geometry is 2-dimensional. They draw 2-dimensionally a cube. The problem is with projective geometry the problem is even in its name, because what it's doing is projecting geometry. It's projecting earth forms. It's not talking about this area. They're trying to find this, okay, by projecting it out, but they're projecting earth forms, projective geometry. Okay. So I studied projective geometry for a long time, and I learned all about it, and I know what's going on. So I tried to work it out into this, and I found out that a very interesting thing. The 7-sided form at the, I'll call the apex, which is the very end of the 7-sided form. It's time now to get into more reality. And I'll show you what I mean. I'm now going to put this correct. This is the way it's correct now. From now on, we must think this way upside down, because that's how the heart is. And the bottom of the heart is called an apex. The top of the heart is called a base. Okay. So I wanted to know what was going on, and so I found out that the bottom part of the 7-sided form, the chestahedron, is at 45 degrees. And the sides are 22.5. Exactly half. This is 45, this is 22.5. And what I did here is I tried to find a cone that would go around the outside and a cone that would go into the inside and touch the end. So the reason I have this red thing is here because it's hard to see, to make sure that this guy's not making this up. You see how red comes right to the end? Yeah? Look, see? Yeah? Oh, I did it, but it's just in my way. And what's so amazing about this is that the inside has this 22.5 degrees, yeah, and the outside is the same cone. Another amazing thing. This is also 22.5 degrees on the outside. what that means is that the wall inside the chestahedron is parallel from the inside to the outside. Okay, so what I was interested in was in this guy. I wanted to know what this, how do you make that? So what I did was I took this and I put lines across it. And the reason you put lines across is in projective geometry, you study planes, okay, and this is the plane now. You study planes with lines that go across the plane so you can see what it does in projection. Well, I put them on there. Now, this is the original, and this is not in any of the books. What I decided to do is try to find out the size of the cone that goes into this thing. And you know that I have that blue plastic that goes around there, which creates this inner circle. Of course, that's the inner circle of spinning. That's where I got it from, right? So that you know it's lawful, and you also know that this circle here is exactly half of this because I drew it yesterday on the board. All right, so I want to find out what's going on. I want to put this in here. And honestly, this is the first one. You can see it's all beat up. And I had to cut a hole in here because as you turn this and you don't, the cones kind of go out like this and it's hard to get in. You have to make a hole. So I took the first and tried to make one cone. Now I used the cones like this with a red line to make sure I had it correct. And I turned this into a cone. And I know that the outside, the inside, I know I have two cones. And that's amazing is it turns out the curves. There's curves going on here. Like this. Well, it didn't fit in there. Did it? No, I did. Okay, I'll make 3. So I turn it around to make it 3. So I have to turn it around to make it 3, and when I finally got it around to 3, it turns all into triangles. They're all triangles. When you have 3 cones, they're all triangles. I didn't know that. Not in the books. So what I did again, thank you. What I did again is to try to see if it would fit. So at 3, all triangles is the fit. Nope. I'm going to do another one. So I did another one, and I turned it to 4, and it turned all into, kind of hard, even this is still not big enough. They turn into all squares. And if you take them at the correct, if you take them at this angle, see they're squares, and if you take them at the angle and where a little paper went, somewhere it's here, but anyway I showed here. Here's what they're saying when those cross. This shape right here is this shape. So when I put it in, it fits. It fits in here. That's this cone. Oop. Get it back to squares. It's that cone. It fits. Once I turn it enough, it fits that cone that goes in there. So this is amazing to me that this happened. Not only that did I get it's the same configuration that's going on in the fibers, okay, even with the research, it has that same shape. So there are 4 there, but there are 8 layers. I only have 4 here to go in there. So what I had to do was make 2 of these. I used 2. I did. And what I did was I followed, I mean out of paper. And what I did was I followed what this guy had here. This doctor, okay, that drew all of these, okay, he had them at certain angles. Now, I just followed that. And let me see if I can catch that up with this one to see where we are. Oh, we're still looking at this. Here's your root 3, which I told you about. See how the heart sits? It's 45 degrees. You can see the white line I drew, that's 45 degrees. You know, but you know that that's not the way it works. It's at root 3, which is between 35 and 36 degrees. And then if you see that, here is the same picture. On this side, I found X-rays. I found X-rays of the front, the top, and the side. And sure enough, they're all at 45 degrees. But you know that's not 45 degrees because you're looking at the face, the front, the side, and the top. You're not looking at it 3-dimensional because the heart doesn't sit in 2 dimensions. It's 3-dimensional form. Okay, so there it is. And then I found out, of course, that on this side is showing the cube. If you look at the face, it's 45 degrees, but you can see that if you look at the cube, which is behind 3-dimensionally, it's 36. Okay, let's see what I have next. All right, here I took the X-rays. I put the X-rays onto the cube. And I saw that if I look at the cube this way, it's 45, 45, 45. But hey, that red line that runs through there is root 3. And of course, again, I made this. It's out of papers. It's not real. But it's very accurate because it has a paper pattern. I just put plaster of Paris around it. So I put the cube with the tetrahedron, with the chestahedron inside, into the middle of the chest. Now, what this shows, what this model shows is why the heart sits on this side of the body. And why it sits at 36 degrees. Now, the heart doesn't exactly sit exactly in the middle. It's shifted over a little bit, but the 36 degrees is still there. So there it is, how it fits in. You can see I'll turn it around, you'll see the chestahedron in the cube, and why the heart sits on the left side of the body. Now, the scientists say the reason it sits on the left side of the body is because this side of the body is colder than this one. So, this helps to show why the heart sits on this side. And also, you know, you've got these big cavas coming up, and you need to have a place where this comes up into the body, and so the heart can't get in the middle because they got to bend in there. Okay. There it shows the one I just showed you. And if you look up above, there's a little picture of the heart on the left side. See it? Oh, there in the ribs. And then you'll see here's the root 3 with the cube inside to show kind of, if you haven't got an idea what that model is showing, that's what it's showing. Okay, minimum surfaces. What I did was I just put a cube. There's a cube. You go back. Well, there it is, yeah. I took a cube, I put it in soap, I blew a bubble, and you can see that the bubble now has minimum surfaces, and it's now organic. Well, I did the same thing with the chestahedron, and inside the chestahedron I found also, here's the actual bubbles that I'm experimenting within the form, and here's one that's inside. This is on the outside, the little one on the inside is there. That is the chestahedron in minimum surfaces, and here's a drawing of it to show kind of what it looks like more clear, because the soap bubbles don't really work out. There it is inside. That's the minimum surfaces. That's how the geometric becomes organic. Okay, so here I am showing here the cube in minimum surfaces and the chestahedron inside the cube in minimum surfaces, which is here. And of course here I've shown you, this is the shape. And you compare it to the real heart models that they have. This is the heart with both chambers. They dissect one side off, the right side is missing. Here's the left side, and here's the form that I showed you. Now here comes this myofiber architecture, okay, which is what I've shown you here. There it is. There's this guy. And he's showing that there are 8 layers. And so what I did was, to show this, I did this. I put red lines on here to show you the direction. And there they are. There's the first one. See it? Okay, so I made these like this. I made this cone. And then I did what he did. I made the lines go down like this. See how the lines are going down like that? Okay, so what I did was I didn't really know how to approach this, because I knew that I needed to study shells to really understand this. And the reason I studied the shells is because they're vortexes that come to rest. They're really vortexes. And I don't know if you know this, but there is a right hand and a left hand shell. This is how you tell. If the right hand goes around like that, and inside is the right hand shell. It's the left hand shell. So I knew that I could put these together like this, okay, and I might be able to understand this. So I did. I took this and I made this into a coil, a cone, and I made it into 4 on both sides. So I took 2 cones and I taped them together. Now I know when I get to the middle because I taped it. And you'll see where I came and taped it, which is right there. Follow me? Now see, that's where the 2 come together. I know there's 4 here and 4 here. But I had to connect them and it doesn't work. You know what I mean? And so I cut it in half and put this one inside there. But I could just take it right out. And this is not something that just slips in and out of each other. This is a solid muscle. And those fibers are strong. So what am I going to do? Because I have 4 on this side, 4 on this side. So what I did was I decided, well, what could I do? So what I decided that what I would do is just roll this one around this one. See what I did? And now I have 8 layers. And they're tough. They are together, they don't move. Oh, okay, so what I decided to do is, well, I have to roll this right. So I have to reverse the rolling. And then you can see how I did this. These are the 2 shells, but they're tied together now in a very interesting way. Very interesting way how this works. There's 4 layers, 4 layers. This is great because I'm getting 8 layers, which is what I wanted. And you can see when you don't have a hole how it gets all tied up down there. So I go around and around like this. I'll eventually get this to come around into the 8 layers. This is my original discovery, this paper. I just used paper. And I drew these lines on here because he did them. He drew those lines too, so I just started drawing lines. They were random. I wasn't worried about, you know, that they're all even. They're not all even. Okay, so here it is. So you see the line that's going down. That's going down here too. So what he did is let's get this right. He unrolled this side and cut it off. He cut this off, it went on the floor. And then what happens here is that the next layer is a little less an angle. So if I take another layer off, you can see that it's more like the third one. If I take the fourth layer off, it's horizontal. Just like this one, it's horizontal. These are horizontal here. So if I continue to take this around, okay, it's now starting to go up. More like this one. And that I'll continue to go all the way around to the bottom. It now has completely reversed into one cone. And this is how the myofibers are organized in nature. We now have seen a reversal. And this is the inside. And the part that I started out with is the outside. Now, inside also the heart, there is a loop, and they call it an apex loop. Well, let's see if I have it on here. Okay, this also shows a real heart showing the fiber orientation. Okay, here is what I did first. Is I took 2 cones, 4 each, and I reversed the spiral. And of course they slip right in and out. So I finally found out that I need to tie them together in a certain way. Okay, and then I found out that there's the myofibers, okay, and there's a hole at the bottom. It doesn't come to a point because it can't wrap around. It gets tied up. And that's why you have to have a hole in the bottom of this before you can wrap them around. Of course, this isn't big enough because you saw I kind of got jammed up. All right, so that was really neat. I was really happy to see this over here because I could see how it was working. There's a bigger one over. Now here's this looping, which Kelly is going to talk about. Now this looping, okay, looks like this. Can you see that loop up there? It's kind of small, but I can't seem to find my pointer. But I think you can see it without me pointing to it. It's here. There's a loop right here. It goes up like this side. It comes around, tucks underneath, and goes up there. Do you see that loop? Yep. Well, they don't know where that comes from. They know it's there, but they don't know. They know the phenomena, but they don't know what's behind the phenomena. All right, so I made it. And here it is. Here's the loop. See the loop? See how it comes across like this? It goes around like that and goes back up. It's coming out of these cones. Well, see, because they don't know this is a cone. I mean, they know it's a vortex and so forth. They don't realize that's a chestahedron. So let's see where the loop comes from. Where does the loop come from? Absolutely gorgeous. Unfolding. Okay, it's tearing a little bit. But the loop is here. It goes from the inside all the way to the outside. And you can now know what layer of the 4 layers that the loop is intertwining. Because some areas, some of the cones don't have it. So now we know what layer. When you do a dissection or something, you know that the loop is at coil 3 and coil 6. Now what's amazing about this, what you see here, is that this is the way that this form comes in. It comes in through these beautiful inner spiraling cones. So again, this is not easy to do because it's kind of flexible, but you see that I have one here, don't I? What line am I holding? Root 3 makes the loop. Here it is, right here. Here's the root 3. And that, when you fold it into a cone, becomes the loop. I'll put this all back together. You'll see how interesting this is. It isn't always easy to get it back the way it's supposed to go. So I don't know if I can do this alone, but see how hard it is? Look, but it's gorgeous. And this has to come out here. Nope, see how it's still curved? Oh, like that. Now, all I need to do is get this rolled up to be flat. I think I can do that. Yeah. Oh, no, it's still got a curve to it, so it must be like this. Now we have the 2 cones and root 3. One on this side and one on this side. Polarities. Okay? You can't do this. You have to reverse it. And now they're together. And all you have to do is to fold this into a cone 8 times, and there's your loop. Now, some of the research is saying that there are 3 loops. Okay? I found the 3 loops. There they are, right there. There's one here that comes at the apex. There's one here at the midline, the midsection of the heart. And then this one goes all the way up to the base of the heart and makes the 3rd loop. But this man is concentrating only on 1 loop. And in his research, he said that there was a 2nd loop. He never mentioned a 3rd. But he ignored that because he was so concentrated on this one that, and the discovery is fantastic. That's just fantastic that he found that. But he doesn't know what's behind the phenomena. That's a dissection. But doesn't know that's coming from cones. There's no mention of it. So if I take this apart, let's see what happens in here. Right back to my original idea. So, any of you are interested in, this is the apex loop, and it talks all about the different things. Let's see if is there something I can read in here. What it says here, I don't want to read too much, but it says here they're criticizing this. And they're criticizing it because they can't bring the evidence of the 8 layers together, because when they dissect it, they have to tear through 8 layers to get it to loop like that, and that's not what happens, as you saw. They go into cones. But anyway, he gives all of these different explanations of how it is. Now, that guy's put a lot of work into this, and he's passed on now, and it's just fascinating reading. I'm going to get sidetracked too much here. So, Carl, if you'd wait on that question, just write it down. Please write it down. I want to answer it. I won't get it through here. All right, here we go. All right, this is interesting. If I go on here, I've left the loop. There's a bigger picture of the loop. And here's they're showing the loop again, like this. See how it is? Here, this is a great drawing over here that they got. They have the loop going from the outside to the inside, then going from the inside of the dotted line inside back to the outside. It goes from the inside, swirls around, goes to the outside. So on this side, it goes from the inside of the heart, swerves around, does its loop, and goes to the outside. But they don't know what layers those are. So if you start dissecting this and you cut the loops, it could be dangerous, I think. But now we know where the loop is inside. Okay, so this is how geometry can reinforce what you're finding. This is another tool. That's all it is a tool. It isn't replacing anything. It's just backup. It's in cooperation, not in competition. That's what this is all about, is to cooperate. All right, there's the big pictures of it. Now I'm going to the left ventricle architecture. Okay, let's see what this is. Now, I showed you that before. This is what they are working with, the prolate, to describe what the inside architecture of the left ventricle is. And on this side here, I am saying that this is the geometry of the inside of the left ventricle. This is what I'm saying. Remember, this is geometry now. It's not minimum surfaces yet. But you can see that it's two straight lines, and then it curves down. Yeah? Everybody see that? Okay, here we go. But the heart is saying that isn't right. Look how it's flat on one side, and one side sticks out. That's not happening here. But it depends on how you look at it. All you have to do is turn it 30 degrees, and one side's exactly flat, and one side's sticking out. This side's sticking out, just like the photograph. There it is, flat, and that side is protruding. So I'll show that here. There it is twisted so that it conforms to what they're saying. Now here it's in minimum surfaces. This is the minimum surfaces of the heart, of the inside of the chamber when it's completely filled. This is filled now, dilated. One side is flat and one side sticks out, even in minimum surfaces. Now this is inside the left chamber of the human heart. Okay, so you see how I did that. There's some other examples. And then what I did is I took the outside of the human heart and I made a vacuum. I used my vacuum in an oven, and I made a plastic form and went around it so I could take the outside of the heart and the inside of the heart, okay, and put them together to study them. And this is a picture of it over here. Now let's see how I get it bigger. Now here is the way I study this to try to find out what was going on. Other views. Now I've got first, second, and third dimensional heart geometry. What do you mean first and second? You know, we're talking about the third. So let me see what I have for that. Oh, I have this. This is so cool. It's right out of the textbooks. This is showing how the heart moves, okay, in less than 1 second. And what happens is that the inside there twists, but the outside doesn't twist. Only the inside twists. So how am I going to show that? What's interesting is that it twists, okay, 40 degrees. So inside is going like this, 40 degrees. It's going like this, 40 degrees. But the outside is going like this. Inside's like that. 40 degrees. Now, at 40 degrees, okay, it's at, these are the seconds from 0 to 9 point whatever, I can't read it. But it's almost a second. But when it reaches full twist, it's at 36. That's right out of the textbooks. I didn't put that 36 in there at all. So how did I do that? How am I going to do this? Well, I took this guy, I took this one, which is, that's like a rock. This thing is tough. I had to try to figure out how to make this flexible. And so I did. Now I can move the heart and show how this works. Now I had a little vice grip here. I don't know if I'm going to find them.
The front.
Where? In the front? Hey, all right. You're hired. All right, here we go. Here we go. I figured out how to do this, to show this. The outside of the heart, okay, goes like this. Remember, this is geometry, okay? It's not organic. It goes like this. But the inside doesn't do that. It's doing it for you, but it doesn't do that. The inside twists. See if I can make it do that. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. Let's see. Twists. Fills. Empties. Ejection. Twists. Now what I found is that when it twists at 40 degrees, it twists about this much. About that much. But if I twist another 5 to 10 more degrees inside the chamber, a new chamber is formed. There is now a new chamber, okay, within the heart. And it's even closed at the top. Now watch it. How fast when I open it. Here we go. I open it up. Fills. Goes up. Twists. Fills. Twists. But that doesn't happen. That middle chamber in there does not happen in anybody yet that we know of. It only goes 40 degrees. This is going to take 60 degrees to do this. That's called the fifth chamber. A lot of people are writing about a fifth chamber. They don't know where it is. So let's see what I have here. Here's a thing that says 36 degrees. The heart beats 0.9 seconds. And a little, all of this is happening in less than a second. Okay, so we have vortex suction. We have MVO dissociation. That's a mitral valve opening. There's a dissociation in the twisting and the timing. It's also, there's a twisting going on with rapid filling, so how can all this have anything to do with rapid filling? Okay, and this is what the heart does. They can't understand how that the heart can get blood down to the apex. Boom, it's like that, just instantaneous. Now, if you think of pressure, which is this part, if you think of pressure, minimum, you have momentum to fight. So when you start to push something, it doesn't like to move right away. It takes a while to get it to going, and then it goes. Right, Dean? Wherever you are. Right, Dean? Now, but suction, okay, doesn't do that. It's just, and then momentum follows. All right, so here we go. Let's see what I got here next. This one. This one here was the best thing I found off the internet. I can't believe how good this was. Because this shows what I found that inside the left ventricle geometrically is doing. That's a magnetic image of inside the left ventricle when the blood is almost filled its chamber. Okay. So I don't know if I want to go to that yet, but I want you to think about that. How could that possibly be what this guy's talking about? The guy said it was like this. Where'd it go? Oh, it's like this. It's like that white one. I mean, but that form there, what is that? Well, I'll let you think about that, because what I want to do is put something on the chalkboard here. Everybody can see the chalkboard, huh? Okay. Now, this is really neat. In the Craig Holdridge book, one of the doctors that he has in there, that he edited, said that the heart, here's the right and left ventricle, something like this. This is the right and this is the left. Said the heart holds 7% of the blood. Okay, the red holds 4%, and the red is 3%. So you notice that this has got a big wall, whereas this is a pretty thin wall. But they're the same vortex. I can prove it on this. You'll see that the right and the left are the same size vortex in the architectural development of the heart. But this has such thick muscles that it only holds 3%. So 3 and a 4, okay, it makes 7. He also said that the blood that's coming out of the aorta, okay, until it ends, gets to the capillaries, holds 12%. So the total amount of red blood in the heart is 15%. And the total amount of blue blood is 85%. It's a research, it's on your list. So what I found about this that was so interesting is that this is the 3 and the 4. There are 4 triangles and 4 quadrilaterals, which makes 7. 3 plus 12 is 15. This is how many edges the form has. So you can see that numbers are related to form and function. But I couldn't figure this 14 or this 15 and 85 out. I couldn't make the heck out of that. I tried to do all kinds of things by dividing and adding and so what I did, I tried all kinds of things. I couldn't get it. And then I said, okay, why don't I go back to the square? And I did. So what I did was this. I drew a square. And that's 1 square. 1. Then I doubled that. I doubled that square. And I doubled it so it had 2 now. Everybody see this? Okay. So is that correct so far? No, not yet. Not correct yet. How come? Why am I saying that's not correct? That's a rectangle, not a square. Right? So let's make it a square. To double the size of a square, you have to have 4 of them, don't you? Yeah? Now you have a square and you doubled it. Follow me? Okay, I'm going to go on. So on this side I have 1, this side I have 4. So I'm going to double this to 4 now. Now we have 4. So that's not a square. So how many squares are there here? How many? 16. There are 16. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, but there's 16 altogether to make the square. This is a rectangle. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to put it down here. I'm going to have 8. 8. And I'll bring this out here. How many will be on this side? 64. 64. You add these up, it's 15. You add these up, it's 85. The geometry is behind the blood in its proportion. That's amazing geometry. And what's so amazing about it to me is that the red blood is 15%. So the red blood is streaming in an extremely directed location from one spot to the next. It's just a straight line. It's a beeline. But the blue blood is spreading. it's going into the plane. This is the first dimension, this is the second dimension. So in the blue blood, it's spreading. Well, this is directed. This has a goal. And the third dimension is root 3. So the blood has the first and the second dimension. The red blood is definitely directed. It has a thick wall, okay, that keeps that blood into a certain diameter, and it's going wherever it wants to go. And also I found out that in this research, that what I really liked about this was they said here that the blue blood is absorbing. What I saw here, first off, that this is like a paper towel. It soaks things up. This absorbs. Well, this is directed. Okay, and also where you can find the 15 and 85%. Okay, so I'll go back to this again about that great picture right there. If I take all of these away and I put in a little bit more about the heart. This is the chestahedron. And minimum surfaces. The inside of this, okay, looks like this. That's the chamber without any blood. All muscle. These are all, the muscles are taking this all up. See it twisting? There's a twisting, isn't there? And then at the bottom, it doesn't twist. Only this part does. And how did I come up with that? Because I know the geometry. When I put this into minimum surfaces and take in the surface, it looks like this. All right, now I have really got a lot on this. Because this is so exciting to me, this part was the best. This is they don't know the inside geometry of the chamber and the left ventricle, they don't know. So this is helping them because this image is correct. Now let's see. Oh, I plan to read all these things, but okay, I'll read one. I'm going to talk about this geometry. And just try to follow me along here. It says that the initial movement of this form, this is the geometry. It says that when the blood is ejected, it moves in a clockwise direction. And the base and the apex move, they move in the same direction, but all of a sudden, there's a change of the middle of the heart in the opposite direction, counterclockwise. Well, how can that be? They don't know how. But watch this. This base and the midsection move in opposite directions. This is a better sample. Look at it. It moves in opposite directions. This one is going this way, this one's going this way. Look. The geometry is allowing this. This is the octahedron that's doing this. This part from here to here is flexible. So I don't put anything there. I don't show it when it's in. But this is they're turning in opposite directions. Now here's what happens. The base moves to the midsection. Now I'm going to move it down. The base moves. Okay? Moves like that. So here, I'll take it back. I'll move the base to a contraction. Then they say here that the next happens is the apex, okay, moves in the opposite direction and goes down. Like that. Did you see it move? Okay, I'll put it back to where it was before. This compresses. It's known as suction. And then what happens is the apex moves down. I'll hold it so it doesn't do that. Here it's contracted. Now I'll move the apex down. The base didn't move. The base started here, it contracted, and then the apex moved. It's exactly what they're describing in these papers. Now we know why. Now we know how. And we know that this part is suction. And I will show you what that part looks like. This is completely empty. This is completely full. No, this isn't. This is the outside. This is what it looks like when it's full. This is what the left chamber looks like when it's full. This is what it's completely empty. From here to here, okay, this twists 40 degrees. They are saying that the heart twists 20 degrees, half of the way it spins, half of it, it twists 40 degrees, but they're saying at 20 degrees, both valves, mitral and the aorta valve, are closed. They're closed. It's called a dissociation in time. So you got these two valves that are closed, okay, and it's twisting 20 degrees. Then the valve opens, then the mitral valve opens up, and the blood, okay, enters, and it's called rapid filling. This is the geometry of the rapid filling. And if you look at that, it's very similar to this, what they found here. This is now into minimum surfaces. And what is happening, I've made this to twist exactly 20 degrees. It's twisting 20 degrees. And that right there, okay, the valves are closed. So it's gone from this shape above my hands. It's gone from this shape to this shape, and there is no blood entering. The valves are both closed. So what is this right here? That's suction. This is like you take a plunger and you push it down, you try to pull it up, and once you do it, so it's sucking the blood in here, okay, because now the valve opens. This is all suction, and what's happening, it sucks in clockwise. The atrium above it is also spinning clockwise. This is causing the blood in the atrium to move clockwise. It's also a vortex, and I also think that it also could be this part right here in the heart where it's sucking is also bringing the blood out of the lungs. Because you've got two veins coming out of the left and two veins coming out of the right. They're different lengths. And they're also involved in a vortex, which I think comes from this. So here we got it. Once this opens up, it just sucks in and goes into a place that doesn't spin. So it's sucking here in a vortex, and then it comes into this part and stops the vortex, and then the heart moves this way and ejects the blood out one of these channels. These channels are held with muscles. There are two muscles in here, and these two channels that go to the valves. But this is the channel that goes to the aorta. And that is the form. So I'll show you here more pictures of that. This is what's so exciting to me was there it is. There's the shape, and you can see that there are, look at this here, there's a curve here, and they're up, this is the aorta, the channel to the aorta. There's this curve here. I'll get a shadow maybe. See this curve here? That's this one. I mean, who they don't know this. I didn't know it. Okay, on this side, it has a slighter curve. There's that slight curve. And of course, this part right here is the part that's going up here on three sides. I'll do it again, see what else there is here. Here's another one. So this is showing them together. So you can see that this curve here is here, and there's this curve. And then, what's really neat is if you really look close, there's a straight line that starts about there and comes down, just like the geometry. The geometry is in the muscle. This part right here that's straight like this, you can actually see in this magnetic image. It's right there. This is what's so exciting to me. Now here's another one that shows this form. You know, here's got these curves on both sides. And what that really indicates right here is that is a Venturi effect. This is like a carburetor. How you get the gas and the air together in such a speed to go into the cylinders is through a vortex that has a Venturi. This is a Venturi that leads to suction. All right, here we go again. There is another view of it. It shows it kind of indented on both sides. And there it is. And this is just the best thing I've found, is that now we have and understand what happens in rapid filling. Rapid filling is happening through suction. So if we affect this particular geometry, it's going to lead to less suction. All right, so over here I have these three images here of the heart. And the last one shows you also the indentation on one side and a little side on the side. This is why this side, when I twist it, is kind of more or less straight. Just like this is. Kind of more straight, where this has this curve. Nobody can explain this. Now we have a tool that you can use, to understand a lot of the phenomena and maybe some of the diseases. I don't know. That's not my field. You know, my field is this. And then another thing is that the blood goes out of the aorta. Okay, it reverses, and the blood goes out counterclockwise, and then there's more pressure in the heart. Okay, you have the heart here, and then you have the aorta. And the aorta makes a bend like this. Okay, there's more pressure in the aorta than there is in the ventricle, and yet both of these move forward. That doesn't make any sense, because, and the papers are saying that. It don't make any sense. How can something that has higher pressure here than here move up? Well, how that happens is that through suction. There, and this shows the suction in the aorta. Right there is suction. I know that because I've studied the streams. And I also know where you pan for gold. I know what direction that was. I didn't know that before. I didn't know what direction came out of into the aorta, what spiral came out of it. But the research showed me that it's a certain angle, or not angle, but a certain clockwise or counterclockwise, which I knew because I saw that the aorta bent. It bends, it doesn't straighten out. So it's not basically pressure, it's basically suction. Because when you take a hose, you turn on the water as hard as you can, that hose just straightens right out, especially a fire hose on a fire engine. But this doesn't happen. When the heart does its rhythm, the aorta increases its arch. That's not pressure, that's suction. Okay, so that was really exciting to find that. And then here's the picture of the fifth chamber that I showed you when I twist this. Here's the fifth chamber. Here's the twisting, or the form. And this is what the fifth chamber looks like. That's the shape. And what is that? You have to understand what will happen when that fifth chamber comes in. Is that fifth chamber full of blood? Or is it full of suction? With the absence of blood? Or is it a combination? We don't know. But if it's suction, it's pressure on suction. It's pressure on less than nothing. Because suction is less than nothing. So how do you put pressure on nothing? Or less than nothing? So somebody asked me, how can you explain that? Well, I had this idea. I said, this guy goes to the casino and he starts gambling. And he loses all his money. So he mortgages his house, and he lost his house to the casino. So he goes home before they take his house away, and there's a knock on the door, and there's this guy about 7 feet, weighing about 300 pounds. His name is Guido, and he has black hair all oiled back. Okay, and he looks outside, and there's a black car out there, and two guys look just like him. So, well, can I help you? He says, yeah, we're here to collect your money. Well, I don't have any money. I lost all my money. And they said, well, I tell you what, we're going to be back here tomorrow at noon. All right? So have a nice day. So that's pressure on next to nothing. All right. Okay, and here we go. This is congestive heart failure. This is what the researchers have put together. They have this one on this side is congested. It's expanded, it's dilated way too much. The one in the middle is the normal heart, and the one is a very constricted heart. They call the first one, the congestive heart failure, they call it Romanistic. It's got a Roman arch. They call the normal heart Gothic because it has a point. And they call the extended one extended Gothic. Okay. So let's look at this. This is the normal heart. This is congestive heart because it's spherical. It becomes more spherical, like they're saying there. And then, when you have a heart that is contracted, it looks like this. More contracted. So, very contracted, normal, congested. So, you saw how this worked. Let's see if I can show you how this one works. This one works more like this. This one looks more like this. See, do I have the right ones here? And the constricted one, the inside geometry looks like this. As you can see, that this geometry is becoming more and more constricted. All right, so it's not going to a Romanesque heart. It's not going to a Romanesque heart, a Roman arch. It's going to the tetrahedron. It's going back through this process. It's going from the tetrahedron, which is this one, back to the tetrahedron. Oh, it's becoming congested. This is now in this shape. So here's what that looks like. The tetrahedron, when it's completely filled, they call it spherical. This is the tetrahedron in a spherical shape. So it's not Romanesque. It's going back to the tetrahedron. You don't need to make up these kind of things. And this is amazing that you can actually show this. And of course, when it becomes more constricted, it gets more like this, which is the inside. So, you know, these are really like this. Well, this one here is much more constricted, which shows this over here, right here. This is very constricted. Now, what's happening is the geometry isn't working very well. This geometry here is way too expanded so that the fibers line up at 45 degrees. Whereas in the healthy heart, they line up at 60 degrees. This is based on 60 degrees. This is based on 72 degrees. So this is the congestive heart. So the congestive heart, okay, what happens is that, this is what happens. They don't understand the congestive heart is that the base moves up instead of moving down. Of course, that makes sense because this is what happens. It's actually moving into a more swelled and less angled geometry so that there's less suction. There's less suction in this than there is in this one. That's why it has problems with filling. It can't fill. So what they're doing now, as I told you before, is they're trying to constrict it. They put an actual wire mesh over the heart to squeeze it back into this shape. And then it works better. And in this case, they take the constricted heart, there's some of researchers that are putting in a mesh inside and expanding it to try to get to this shape. So you know that this is going back to its original shape. It isn't vortexing as much at all. Okay, so let's see what I have on here. Yeah, here's the shape. Look at this. The healthy heart rotates in both directions. The expanded heart rotates in the same direction. This one does the opposite, like I showed you. This one does is actually, they're turning the same direction. The apex and the base are turning in the same direction. Whereas in the healthy heart, they turn in opposite directions. And there's a congested heart. This is showing this again here. So that's expanding. So why is the heart doing that? It's losing enthusiasm. It doesn't have anything to do with its life forces and working on the earth. Okay, I realize I'm getting out of time here. And I made a vortex generator. I can control the vortex not only in size, but in speed and shape. And what I did was I put inside the vortex generator, I put in this form of spinning motion. Here it is, the one I actually put into the generator. Okay, and what I did was, you'll see this, you'll see it in there. There it is. And here's what happens. This form right here, from here, the middle of this form is accelerating, and the bottom of the form is deaccelerating. Now I've shown this through vortexes. When I shut the machine off, the vortex comes up like that and creates this shape right here. When I turn it on quick, it turns this shape in. So this is accelerating and deaccelerating at the same time. That's what your heart is doing. Okay, so here what I did, this is really cool, is I took this and I put that form at 36 degrees. I put this into a vortex at 36 degrees, and now you know why. And what happens is it pushed the other vortex, it took and pushed the other vortex over into this shape, which is exactly the shape of the right ventricle. And there it is, there it is. See how the vortex goes around it, comes a little bit down here, and doesn't go to the end. And that shape right there is the other vortex. So there's a good shot of it that shows it in the lines there, before the lines, here's with the lines. And then here is the cavity that it makes. This cavity right here is the other vortex. And it's moving in the same direction. It swills right here and goes out the pulmonary to the lungs. And they now know the right ventricle, okay, has a geometry behind it. Here's the model I made. It shows the cavity. I just took the epoxy, waterproof epoxy, and I just built up the form to conform to the vortex, and that's exactly what the heart looks like on the right and left side. Here are the forms right here out of the internet that show that little guy. Look at this guy. All of them have that form. That is a vortex that's been indented. That's, they call it, the right ventricle is an indented. Okay, my time's up. But maybe I can just take a minute and show you this vortex generator. I'm going to take this form and put inside. And I'm all set to go, so it won't take long. This will show you why the apex is paper thin. Now what this is showing you is that a vortex won't go in any deeper than here. And that's why this doesn't have to have a big muscle. This can be paper thin here, and it is. This is what happens in water with a vortex. Now remember that the heart is going like this, but this is showing what a vortex does, because the vortex as it's going into the heart is a vortex. Now what you'll see is that the vortex are inside the form. And you see how starting to go in takes time. Dynamics, the fluid dynamics of how this works. Now it's starting to get down in there a little deeper, which is where all the suction is. Right here is where all the suction is. And down, yeah, it's getting closer to the apex, but you see the outside of the mitrid valve, the size of it, starts to spray out and won't allow it. Comes in. Well, it doesn't explain how these fibers do this, and how they go, 4 of them are going like this, and 4 of them are going like this, and making that loop. It doesn't explain it, but it's a wonderful way of looking at that the heart is coming in through a spiral. The heart is coming in through a vortex. It is a vortex. And the vortex is accelerating and deaccelerating. Again, this great balance between polarities. Even this is a balance of polarities that the fibers do. It's fantastic, Carl.
So basically, 2 vortices are already forming in the pulsating blood out of which the heart forms, because we know the heart forms out of the pulsating blood.
Go ahead.
So are there 2 vortices out of which the heart forms? 2 vortices in the blood first, is that correct?
2 vortices in the blood.
In the blood, out of which the heart forms. Is that right?
Because the pulsation is there before the heart forms, and that's one of the key things in embryology that's never taken into account when they say the heart is a pump. Because the pulsation is there embryologically before the heart forms. And so that therefore there have to be these counter-rotating vortices already in the heart that lead to then the structural differentiation of the heart.
So the missing piece in considering the statement that the heart is a pump is that embryologically there is movement in the embryo at an earlier stage than when there is a heart. And that indeed the movement of the blood may in fact form the heart, and Carl is exploring the mechanism of how that movement might influence this intricate shape that we're seeing.
Well, from the studies of these researchers, I have found that I always thought that the blood carried the chestahedron. It carries the heart. It carries it because it does this twist, in embryology. But if you look more into the embryology, that the heart is formed, is forming before there's any blood vessels. The blood vessels are all kind of like this, not connected, and they slowly get more and more connected. And then the blood moves, before the heart starts. It's moving and the heart isn't even moving. It's not moving. So how can that be a pump? That's not a pump. This thing is not a pump. The heart is not a pump. The heart is a balance between pressure and suction. Carl, and I explain this kind of by the way that the inferior and the superior cavas come together. One comes from the top like this, and one comes from the bottom like this, and they meet in the atrium, right? Do you know that they're turning in different directions, opposite directions? So this is turning this way, and the one above is turning this direction. And when they come together, they don't clash. There's no clash. How can that be? How can you bring two vortexes without any clash? And what I found out through the geometry is that the vortex at the top, which is turning opposite direction, and the vortex at the bottom that's coming into the cavus, this one bends. And the video that you have by Dr. Kilner shows that what I'm saying happens. So when this one bends, going in opposite direction as this one, once it bends, they're going in the same direction now. And when they go into the right ventricle, they're both going in the same direction, and they go back to the lungs. But before, they're opposite directions. But this one bends, so what it means is that we need to bend sometimes, to bend to the other person. And what happens is that this one here goes inside this one. This is what I see, so that you have 2 vortexes, inside one side, inside the other. And that has a lot to do with the forming of this form. The 8 layers, because one layer is going this way and the other layer is going this way. Those are 2 vortexes, and they're coming. One is coming in, and one is bending and going inside the other. That's what this research shows me. Now, what's really neat about this is that these guys here can teach me if I'm right or not. And my form can help them to see if they agree. This is a mutual, it's a mutual thing here. I told you I was going to read this to the end, and I'm going to. If I can find, that's my glasses. Here's the end of their research special report. Their special report here they did when I introduced this. At the very end, they said this. They said, this is at the very end. They have a number of things they do. They're saying one is that we need advanced techniques and surgery to help reconstruct the shape and function of the heart, okay? And we need to have more information on the geometry. A remodeling of the dilated left ventricle to a smaller sphere or from a smaller volume that has an elliptical shape. They're asking how this should be done. How do we make this smaller? And why is this getting bigger? And what is the form? And then they say, new operations may be developed to allow opposite layers containing different fiber orientations, restoring to a more natural scaffolding of heart failure or heart form. Advancements in understanding the shape and fiber dynamics. They want to understand the fiber dynamics. A fuller recognition of the form and function in relationship to normal and failing hearts. And at the end they say, accomplishing these goals requires a multidisciplinary collaboration of physicists, biomedical engineers, clinicians, radiologists, and on and on. And that's what I'm here to do. I am bringing in another discipline, okay, among other disciplines to help coordinate how we can help people with heart failures and with heart problems. Oh. Thank you. Thank you. I know there's some questions in the back. I saw 3 hands go up one time, but no. No? Okay.
I actually have a little comment to make about these processes. They're actually newly discovered by the end of this weekend. There are 4 cooperating processes. They take place in time, and they take place in the time sphere, and in the movement volume sphere, in heredity, and they come together really in their two. And we'll see this, hopefully, that perhaps in a very young child, you will be seeing very different movements, vortical movements than in the mature child, and certainly in the post-adolescent.
David, I didn't catch what you said they come together in.
Yes, the 4 streams, the 4 movement streams,
Right.
really begin to come together in puberty,
Okay.
in late puberty, so that really they are not there in the young child, or are missing links. The hereditary stream is overcome, and that gives the heart a completely new configuration. And we'll discuss this. At least I'll attempt to discuss it.
Do you want me to repeat that? So David's comment is that there are 4 streams together through the conscience, and one of them is heredity, another is time, another is movement. I didn't catch the 4th, but they come together in puberty because
Karma, actually.
Karma. And those 4 are different in the young child than in the person in puberty when they come together, and then later the adult.
So that fantastic drill, the drill of transceptor, actually it takes us through a cine of time very rapidly. We get to the mature heart as the speed and force accumulates.
So Dave further said that the drill demonstrates more vortices being formed as we mature. There's a parallel in our capacities in the little Franco drill demonstration that we had.
See, what's neat about what David's saying is that this conference is a multidisciplinary collaboration, because he's going to cover, and Kelly's going to cover different parts of this, okay, to bring these together. And that's exactly what I need, okay, is that for somebody, you know, I have other things to do. You know, I have a whole bunch of other stuff that's coming in to me, and I will eventually leave this, okay. What I'm hoping is that I can get together people who are interested to study this, okay, with me, okay, so we can find out where my errors are, where I'm making mistakes, or where I'm having a more clear insight, okay, because these insights, you know, are coming to me, okay, through a lot of study, but they're also coming to me, okay, through intuition.
I wanted to plant a question, not for right now, but for consideration at some point. I'm just wondering how the fuller transdisciplinary picture that you're bringing, where we include these four streams, we include what is unseen, we include a spiritual perspective. I want to know how you imagine that that relates to the new artificial heart just approved for implantation called the AbioCor. It runs on 2 vortices, and it is a continuous flow with no heartbeat.
Well, what is, go ahead.
You need that question repeated?
Okay, the latest thing is these guys in Texas, okay, have developed a non-beating heart. Doesn't have a beat, okay. So you know, I don't know how many people have emailed me this image, okay, and of course the first thing that I saw was, this is absurd. It's just, what the hell is going on here? Because they've taken 2 kind of cone-shaped forms like this, kind of like this, and they put a little propeller in the bottom, okay? And so they're bringing the blood in with the propeller and moving it out with the propeller, okay, with 2 of them. And that's all based on pressure. That's not suction. The heart is half suction. And so they're so proud that this thing worked after the guy's dead. This guy's dead and it's still pumping. It's still doing, you know, and they're so happy. You see how good we have this artificial heart? It's still working, the guy's dead. So, well, if the guy's dead, well, that's not working. I mean, this is ridiculous, these little spinners. I can show them a better spinner. But that's not what the heart is. A heart's not a pump. I mean, if it was a pump, wouldn't it pump all the blood out every time it ejected the blood? 50% of the blood is always held back in the heart every time it pumps. Every time it does its ejection. And that's not a very good pump. And then think of this. The right ventricle, which is a vortex that's been indented, okay, the blood comes into it, does a vortex, and goes to the lungs. Both of those valves can be removed, and the blood still goes to the lungs. Now you show me how a pump works without valves. That's streaming. That's not pumping. And this thing is just, this is unbelievable that somebody allowed this to go in them. Well, okay, they live 3 days longer. So, you know, it's just, it's ridiculous if they only understood the heart. And the way it actually is working at it is a brake. It brings the blood and reverses it, okay? It's stopping this vortex. It's extremely powerful. It's stopping it and reversing it in the opposite direction. It is a brake. It's deaccelerating the bottom and accelerating the top. Now, the heart is not a pump. That's not what it's doing. I mean, the blood goes throughout the embryo, okay, without the heart. So that's what I think of that.
I'm going to let Pam.
So, Frank, do you ever respond to the researchers who do these papers to let them know about your work?
Everybody hear that? Yeah. I sent letter after letter after letter with this conference flyer and my background and all of the lectures that I've given are worldwide on this, and I never even got a return. I didn't even say thanks, I'll look at it, nothing. Zip. And some of them are here in San Francisco. Matter of fact, one of the main papers I have here is by the guy here in San Francisco. I haven't called the guy up, left a message, nothing. So that's the answer. I don't know, you have to remember that I'm coming from a geometry side. I have no medical training. I'm not interested in that. That's not my field. My field is that I found this, so it indicates to me that I should share it. If I don't, I give away all my secrets. All this is on the internet. All this is on my website. I don't keep anything as a secret, because if I do, then nothing new comes to me. And if I give away, I become empty. And then here comes this new stuff. It's like this. This fella goes and wants to be a monk. So he goes to this monk priest. And he says to the priest, I want to be a monk. You do? Oh, well, sit down. You want some tea? He said, sure, I'd like some tea. So he said, put his cup there, and he starts pouring the tea to the guy. And it doesn't stop, and it's going on the side of the cup and down on the table, and now it's getting on the floor. And he says, stop, why are you doing that? You're filling this cup, it's already full. And he says, it's just like you. You're completely full. Nothing new can go in. And that's what we have to avoid, because that hurts the heart when we can't accept new views. Okay? When we can, new views, that's perfect, that magazine. That hurts. That leads to this. Or it leads to this if we have too much pressure on us. We put too much pressure on it. That heart is the guy here that comes along and says, hey man, I'll adjust to you, I'll do anything you want. And that's what it does. And it's going back to its original form, which is a tetrahedron.
Frank, could you say more about the suction relationship in the aorta? The aorta has rifling in it, like a rifle that creates a vortex as it travels through it. Could you say more about that?
Yeah, it does.
Why that?
When you shoot a gun, they found, or you shoot an arrow, the old Indians, they put the feathers on the end. They made the feathers so they bend like that, so that the arrow doesn't go straight, it spins like that. And also the gun, the rifle barrel, they'll put the ridges, that spiral, that allows the bullet to spin when it comes out. So basically if it just comes out, that's pressure. But to spin is the suctional part. Now, I have read in here that the researchers say that when you dissect an artery, it's just round inside. But do imaging, they found out that the artery actually takes on the form of 3 veins, 3 ridges, they call them, that go like this. And if you look at the image that you guys have, of Kilmer, Dr. Kilmer, he shows the aorta is like this, and you can see a rifling all the way around the edge of the outside of the aorta, which is exactly a vortex. And that little spinning right there, that's a vortex. And underneath it and above it are pressure. So the blood has, that's why the blood does this. It retrogrades. It goes to a certain distance and then reverses. And then it goes a little distance and reverses. Pressure, suction. Pressure, suction. But the veins don't do that. The veins are just a solid stream. Just like I showed, the 85%. It's just going out. Only time you get a pulse in a vein is when it goes over an artery. And the artery underneath causes the vein to pulse. So that suction is in the aorta. That's why it bends like that instead of straightening out. And this should inspire you guys to do research. Leave me alone. This is so exciting. And this is just the beginning. Yes?
I have a question. Why did you put the lines straight on the plastic cone and curved on the paper cone?
The plastic cone, why I did that is because that was based how we work with projective geometry. We take a plane and we run lines across it. And if you look at any projective geometry book, you'll see that. The reason I put the curved lines on this one was because these were curves. They were curving. Look how this curves into here. See that curve right there? That's what I have on this. But in the middle, where it's tied together, there's no curves. They're just straight. They're straight here. That's why it goes horizontal. It's straight here. But on the very end, look at this. Look at that curve. That's a vortex. That's what happens in the water. If you look at the vortex real closely, you can see the front of the vortex and the back of the vortex. And the front of the vortex is going like this, and the back of the vortex is going like that. Right in that form. That's what this does. And see, Carl, how that's so beautiful. And that's just, you know, I'm on my training. I'm an artist. I was trained. I got my degree in art. Okay, and I never. Well, in high school, I only failed one class in high school. That was geometry. True. I failed it. But I mean, Carl, that's beautiful. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? And if you know, this is sculpture, man. That is two vortexes unraveling, going in different directions. That's how the heart comes in, Carl. Where or when, I don't know. I don't know about embryology too much. I haven't done much work with that. I've been doing this. Manifestation I've been working with, you know, trying to find what's behind manifestation.
There was something alluded to with the fifth chamber going from, I think, when I remembered from your article in New Views, it was 55 to 60 degrees, and there was an increase of 5 degrees. Do you have any sense as to how a human being can effect that increase?
Well, I'm not sure where that was in the magazine. Was that under the Aurora Borealis or?
No, it was in the very first article that talked about the fifth chamber.
Oh, the fifth chamber.
Yeah.
And it talks about the fifth chamber and how many degrees it has to turn? Yes.
Like that, yeah.
It has to, I had some between 5 degrees, didn't I? 5 and 6 degrees. And the reason I had that, remember I said in here, I said I had to turn another 20 degrees. Remember that? Had to go from 40 to 60. The reason that is because this, okay, is already twisted 25 degrees from this form. In other words, this triangle and this triangle are twisted already. So it only takes about 5 degrees more to get this to twist. And make because it's already twisted one, then it has to go another 40 degrees. So it was 55 degrees. And then 5 more degrees makes 60, and that's when the form will come in. So our heart doesn't have to turn much more. And I've asked myself, what do you have to do? What does a human being have to do to have that twist more by 5 degrees? It has to relax under tension. It's the statue of David is the perfect example. If you look at him, why it's so beautiful and unbelievable is that David is standing in a very relaxed pose. Take a look at it. He's very relaxed. But every muscle in him is under great tension. There's a polarity between those two. So what I think you have to do is when terror comes to us, okay, we have to face it with equanimity. We have to take it when we're terrorized in a situation, we have to relax. That will bring a flexibility in the heart that this can happen.
Jim?
Does that relate to meditation?
What do you say?
Does that relate to meditation?
You know, you guys, I have to tell you that I don't meditate. Doesn't work for me. And so all these meditations that are out there, I'm the last person you should ask about that because I don't do that. Okay, my meditation is active. Okay? This is my meditation. I don't sit and watch my navel. You know, I don't do that kind of stuff. Okay? It's active meditation. And the problem is with meditation is that it can lead to develop you in such a way that part of you is not developed. And so you develop one part. So they're talking about meditating on the pituitary and the pineal gland and bringing the heart forces up to these two. It's extremely dangerous because you develop only one part and you're leaving all these other parts undeveloped. That's very dangerous. Whatever you guys meditate, make sure you know what you're doing and make sure it works for you. Huh? See the source. See the person who wrote up the meditation. Ask who they are. Ask their name. What is your name? What is your background? Have you been meditating like this? Where did you get this idea of how to meditate like this? Don't just accept this stuff. It's coming from different times and different people. We have a consciousness that we're developing that's way, way out there compared to what was in the past. Our consciousness is lightning speed. And look at the kids even more. We have to be real careful with meditations. That's my advice. I don't meditate.
It's 11:30, so I'm going to interrupt. There's a request that there be one more fishbowl demonstration. If that is okay with people, we're ready for break. Do you want to see the fishbowl or do you want a break? Fishbowl. Fishbowl, okay. And there is on the laptop computer the YouTube from Dr. Kilner from the UK Heart Research, and there's a few handouts that give you those links. There's another video that I can't put them sequentially, so just one is visible, but there's two from his email that would let you know how to see both of the things he sent.
And also I wanted to introduce Tom Raines. He's the editor and owner of New View magazine, which is over here. He purchased the New View magazine from Switzerland 12 years ago, and he's taken it over and he's brought it in, and the more people that subscribe, the better. And it's the most excellent magazine out on these type of subjects, absolutely. And so you can talk to him. He flew out from England to come to this conference. And please. And he is writing the book on my work. Couldn't choose a better person.
Frank, can I introduce Ross as well?
Go ahead.
Ross, would you stand up? Ross has put this beautiful wind chime out here that's based on geometry. So if you have questions about that, find him and talk to him about that and stand next to it and listen.
And thank you, Ross, for coming. Ross and I have been in communication for a long time, and he's going to make the chestahedron in a chime. And he's here to do it accurately with Matt during the geometry section. And also Adrian. Where are you, Adrian?
Right here.
Adrian's on a floor. No wonder I can't find you. Adrian took the chestahedron and made a stainless steel container over here. And she puts a vessel in it with water. And she has some experiences with the change of the water. And also she is the owner and operator and originator of Sauerkraut. And this is a sauerkraut that's been raised and so forth and worked out in the water research and so forth. That's probably the best on the market. So Adrian, if you want to ask her questions about this little device over here, and it's made of stainless steel.